Carlos was a man whom life had pushed to the fringes of society. He once had a stable life and a family he loved, but a series of misfortunes, including job loss and personal problems, led him to live on the streets. Despite the hardships, Carlos never lost his humanity. He was known among the homeless in the city center as a kind person, always willing to share the little he had. One day, while wandering the streets of downtown, Carlos decided to sit on a bench near the entrance of a park. It was a busy place where he often received a few coins from hurried people going to and from work. Winter was approaching, and the temperature was dropping quickly, making life on the streets even more challenging. Carlos wrapped himself in an old blanket, trying to shield himself from the cold while observing the activity around him. Then, something unusual caught his attention. A well-dressed man, visibly in a hurry, ran past him and dropped something on the ground. Carlos looked down and saw a wallet. He picked it up, surprised at its weight, and noticed it was full. Opening the wallet, Carlos saw a substantial amount of money, several credit cards, and personal documents. He immediately knew the owner would be desperate to get these items back. Carlos found himself facing a dilemma. In his situation, such an amount could mean days, maybe weeks, of food and shelter. But something in his conscience wouldn't allow him to keep the money. Memories of his upbringing returned, his mother's teachings about honesty and integrity. She always told him that a person's character is tested in the small things, and Carlos knew that despite everything, he wanted to remain the honest person she had raised. Determined to return the wallet, Carlos looked for any information that could help him find the owner. He found a business card with the name Ricardo Morera and an address. Without a phone or internet access, the only option was to go to the address in person. Carlos was nervous, uncertain about how he would be received, especially considering his appearance and the prejudice he knew many had against homeless people. Deciding to do the right thing, Carlos began his journey to the address. It was a long walk, and as he passed through different neighborhoods, each more prosperous than the last, he felt increasingly out of place. Upon entering an affluent area, where the houses were large and well-maintained, a stark contrast to his daily reality, Carlos felt particularly out of his element. Upon reaching the address, an elegant house with a well-kept garden, Carlos took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. He was anxious, worried about what awaited him on the other side of the door. Would the wallet's owner think he was there to ask for money or, worse, that he had stolen the wallet? The door opened, and Carlos found himself face to face with a well-dressed man of about 40 years old, looking surprised. Ricardo Morera, the wallet's owner, was clearly about to leave for a meeting. He looked at Carlos with curiosity, trying to understand what a stranger was doing at his door. Carlos, feeling the pressure of the moment, extended the wallet and said, "I found this in the park. It seems to belong to you." Ricardo, initially confused, took the wallet and quickly checked its contents. He was astonished to see that everything was there, especially the money he had withdrawn for a big business deal. Ricardo looked at Carlos, surprise evident in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," Ricardo said, still processing what had happened. "It's very rare to find someone so honest. Please come in. I'd like to reward you in some way." Carlos hesitated. He hadn't expected a reward and was concerned about how it might be interpreted. However, Ricardo's hospitality seemed genuine, and he accepted the invitation, stepping into the house. The house was cozy and elegantly decorated, reflecting Ricardo's success. To Carlos, it felt like a completely different world from what he was used to. Ricardo offered Carlos a hot drink, which he gratefully accepted. As they settled in the living room, Ricardo, still impressed by Carlos's honesty, began asking about his life. Carlos shared a brief story about how he ended up on the streets, speaking about the loss of his job and the struggles he faced since then. He mentioned how life could change suddenly and how, despite everything, he always tried to maintain his integrity. Ricardo, touched by Carlos's story, realized he was in the presence of someone with exceptional character. He knew that a simple financial reward wouldn't be enough to express his gratitude and, more importantly, saw an opportunity to truly help Carlos. Thus, an idea began to form in Ricardo's mind, an idea that could change both their lives in ways they could not yet imagine. Carlos, still feeling somewhat out of place in Ricardo's elegant home, accepted the hot drink offered to him. The steam rising from the tea seemed to warm not just his hands, but also his spirit. Ricardo, after recovering from the initial shock of having his wallet returned intact, sat across from Carlos, still visibly impressed by the act of honesty he had witnessed. Ricardo Moreira was a successful businessman in the technology sector, known for his work ethic and dedication. He had grown up in a humble family, but, through effort and determination, built a solid and prosperous career. Losing the wallet would have been a significant disruption, not just because of the money, but also due to the important documents and credit cards it contained. Ricardo knew that, in the hustle and bustle of daily life, he could easily have taken a while to realize the wallet was missing. "You have no idea how grateful I am," Ricardo said, breaking the silence. "I hadn't even realized I had lost my wallet. You saved my day." Carlos smiled shyly, still somewhat uncomfortable with the situation. He wasn't used to being the center of attention or receiving praise, especially from someone like Ricardo. He briefly explained how he found the wallet and his decision to return it, emphasizing that he couldn't keep something that wasn't his. Ricardo, still processing Carlos's kindness, asked a series of questions, wanting to know more about the man who had shown such integrity. Carlos, speaking calmly and somewhat hesitantly, told his story simply. He talked about losing his job a few years ago, a series of unfortunate events that led him to his current situation, and how he tried to survive on the streets, helping others when he could. Ricardo listened attentively, feeling a mixture of compassion and admiration. He could see that Carlos was not just an honest man, but also someone who, despite difficult circumstances, maintained a positive outlook and a desire to do good. Ricardo wondered how someone with so much character could end up in such a tough situation. He felt an urge to help, not just because he felt indebted for having his wallet returned, but because he believed Carlos deserved a chance to improve his life. "Carlos, I can't simply accept your kindness without doing something in return," Ricardo said sincerely. "I'd like to offer a reward, but I also want to know if there's something more I can do for you. You mentioned you're unemployed. Would you be interested in a job opportunity?" Carlos was surprised by the offer. He hadn't expected this and, for a moment, was speechless. The idea of having a job, a routine, and a purpose was both exciting and intimidating. He hadn't worked formally in years and feared he might not meet the expectations. However, he also knew this could be a once-in-a-lifetime chance to change his situation. I don't know what to say," Carlos began, somewhat emotional. "I never expected something like this, but I'd be willing to try if you think I can help in some way." Ricardo smiled, feeling satisfied with Carlos's response. He explained that his company, a small but growing technology firm, was always looking for dedicated and hardworking people. He suggested that Carlos could start with some simple tasks, like helping with office maintenance and making deliveries, and that over time, they could see how he could fit into other areas. Carlos agreed, still feeling a bit skeptical about his ability to meet expectations, but determined to make the most of the opportunity. Ricardo assured him that he would receive all the necessary support, including new clothes for work and any training he might need. He wanted Carlos to feel comfortable and welcome, knowing this was a big step for someone who had been out of the workforce for so long. Before parting, Ricardo insisted that Carlos accept a small amount of money as a gesture of immediate thanks, which Carlos, after some insistence, accepted. They arranged to meet at the company the next morning, where Carlos would start his new job. As he left Ricardo's house, Carlos felt a wave of emotions. He was incredibly grateful for Ricardo's generosity, but also felt a growing nervousness. Life on the streets had been tough, but he had gotten used to that reality. Now, he was about to enter a completely different world, full of new responsibilities and expectations. Carlos spent the night in a shelter, reflecting on the extraordinary day he had had. He knew the opportunity he had been given was rare, and that many would not have the same luck. Determined to do his best, he mentally prepared for what awaited him the next day. He knew it would be difficult, but he was ready to try. For the first time in a long while, Carlos felt a spark of hope and purpose, something he thought he had lost forever. The next morning, Carlos woke up early, feeling a mix of anxiety and excitement. The shelter where he had spent the night was quiet, and he took advantage of the silence to reflect on the opportunity Ricardo had offered him. As he had a simple coffee, Carlos thought about how his life could change from that day forward. He was determined to do his best and show Ricardo that his trust was not misplaced. Carlos took the bus to Ricardo's company, a journey he had mentally rehearsed several times. When he arrived, he was greeted by Ricardo at the reception. Ricardo was smiling warmly, which helped ease some of Carlos's nervousness. He handed Carlos a bag with new clothes and a pair of comfortable shoes, as well as personal hygiene items. Ricardo had thought of everything, ensuring that Carlos felt respected and dignified. "Welcome, Carlos," Ricardo said, shaking his hand firmly. "I'm glad you decided to join us. Today, I'll introduce you to the team and show you some of the tasks you'll be doing. Don't worry, we'll give you everything you need to feel comfortable and confident." Carlos, now dressed in new clothes and feeling much more presentable, was taken by Ricardo to meet the office and the team. Ricardo's company, called Tech Hub Solutions, was a small but innovative technology startup. The environment was modern and welcoming, with open workspaces and a collaborative atmosphere. Carlos felt a bit intimidated at first, but the warm reception from the team helped him relax. Ricardo made sure to introduce Carlos to everyone, briefly explaining how they had met and the opportunity they were offering. Carlos's co-workers were diverse and friendly. Many were impressed with Carlos's story and his integrity in returning Ricardo's wallet. They welcomed him with open arms, showing genuine interest in helping him adjust. Carlos was instructed to start with simple tasks, such as organizing documents, running small errands, and assisting with general office maintenance. Ricardo explained that these tasks were just the beginning and that, over time, Carlos could learn new skills and take on more responsibilities. During lunch, Ricardo invited Carlos to join him and some team members at a nearby restaurant. This was a new experience for Carlos, who was not used to eating in restaurants. He was impressed by the generosity and willingness of Ricardo and the team to include him. They talked about various topics, from technology to hobbies and personal interests. Carlos, initially shy, began to feel more comfortable and shared some of his own stories and experiences. Ricardo, observing Carlos, felt satisfied with how he was integrating. He noticed that, despite his difficult circumstances, Carlos had a natural curiosity and a willingness to learn. Ricardo knew that with the right support, Carlos could flourish and find a new path in life. In the afternoon, Carlos was invited to join a team meeting where the company's goals and projects were discussed. Although many of the discussions were technical and specific to the technology sector, Carlos was interested to see how the company operated and how decisions were made. Ricardo made sure to include Carlos in the conversation, explaining basic concepts and encouraging him to ask questions. This made Carlos feel valued and part of the team, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. At the end of the first day, Carlos was exhausted but happy. He felt he had taken the first step towards something positive and transformative. Ricardo gave him a transportation pass to make commuting to work easier and encouraged him to come back the next day, assuring him that he would always have someone to help if needed. Before leaving, Ricardo had a private conversation with Carlos. He wanted to ensure that Carlos knew the company was committed to supporting him during this transition. "Carlos, I know today was a big step and it can be a bit overwhelming," Ricardo said with an encouraging smile. "I want you to know that we're all here to help you. If you need anything, whether it's help with tasks or something more personal, please let me know. You're part of our team now, and that means we take care of each other." Carlos, deeply touched by Ricardo's empathy and support, thanked him once again for the opportunity. He felt a renewed hope, something he hadn't felt in years. As he prepared to return to the shelter, he reflected on how a simple act of honesty had led to such a significant change in his life. Carlos knew that the road ahead would still be difficult, but he was ready to face the challenges and make the most of this new opportunity. That night, as he lay down, Carlos thought about how transformative the day had been. He was grateful to Ricardo and to all the people who had welcomed him and shown him such kindness. For the first time in a long while, he felt he had direction and could build a better future. Carlos promised himself that he would do everything he could to seize this chance and continue working hard to prove that he deserved the trust Ricardo and the team had placed in him. On the second day at Tech Hub Solutions, Carlos felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. He had spent the night at the shelter, reflecting on the experiences of the previous day and the new opportunities that lay ahead. Carlos knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but he was determined to do his best. Upon arriving at the company, he was again warmly welcomed by the team. Ricardo, always attentive and supportive, guided him to his new workstation and introduced him to a colleague who would serve as his mentor during the initial phase. The mentor, João, was a veteran employee of the company, known for his patience and teaching skills. João was enthusiastic about helping Carlos integrate, seeing in him a dedicated person with great potential. Carlos began the day by reviewing some of the simple tasks he had already done the previous day. He helped organize documents, took care of small repairs, and made some internal deliveries. Although these were basic tasks, Carlos performed them with care and dedication, aware that every little contribution was important for the smooth running of the company. João noticed Carlos's effort and attention to detail, which motivated him to teach him more about the company's internal workings. He began to explain basic concepts of logistics and organization, helping Carlos understand how his tasks fit into the bigger picture. João also shared some tips on how to manage time and the importance of maintaining clear communication with colleagues. During a coffee break, Carlos and João sat together in the company's small kitchen. João, noticing Carlos's curiosity, began to talk about the company's culture and how everyone there valued collaboration and personal growth. He explained that Tech Hub Solutions was more than just a technology company. It was a community where people supported each other and where individual development was encouraged. Carlos was impressed with the company's philosophy. He felt he had found a place where he could not only work, but also grow and develop. João, noticing Carlos's interest, suggested that he consider participating in some of the personal development activities offered by the company, such as workshops and training sessions. As the day progressed, Carlos had the opportunity to work on a more challenging task. Ricardo asked him and João to organize a small storage area that had been disorganized for some time. It was a task that required attention and organization, something Carlos had never done in a corporate environment. However, he accepted the challenge with enthusiasm, seeing it as an opportunity to show his commitment. As they worked, João taught Carlos about the importance of efficiency and organization in the workplace. He showed Carlos how to catalog items and create an easily accessible system, something that would be useful for the team in the future. Carlos learned quickly and even suggested some improvements, which were well received by João. The experience was extremely gratifying for Carlos, who began to realize that he had more skills than he had imagined. At the end of the day, Ricardo made sure to talk to Carlos to see how he was feeling. Carlos, with a genuine smile, expressed his gratitude for the opportunity and talked about how much he was learning. Ricardo was pleased to see Carlos's enthusiasm and praised him for his positive attitude and willingness to learn. "Carlos, I'm very impressed with your dedication and attitude," Ricardo said sincerely. "That's exactly the mindset we want in our team. Remember, if you need anything or have any questions, we're all here to help." Carlos thanked him again, feeling increasingly like part of the company. He knew he still had a long way to go, but he was confident he could grow and make significant contributions to the team. That second day was a milestone for Carlos, as he began to realize that he was not just receiving help, but also offering value in return. That night, as he returned to the shelter, Carlos reflected on the good fortune he had had in meeting Ricardo and how a simple act of honesty had changed his life in ways he never imagined. He was determined to continue working hard and make the most of this new opportunity. Carlos knew he was at the beginning of a new journey and that, with the support of the team and Ricardo, he could achieve much more than he ever thought possible. With this in mind, Carlos fell asleep that night feeling grateful and hopeful for the future. He knew that he would still face challenges, but he was ready to face them with the same determination that had brought him this far. Carlos had a renewed sense of purpose and a clear vision of a better future, something he had lost sight of during his years living on the streets. Now, he was ready to build a new life, full of possibilities and opportunities. As the weeks passed, Carlos began to feel more comfortable and confident in his new routine at TechHub Solutions. He was learning quickly and adapting well to the work environment, but the transition from a life on the streets to a position in a company still presented significant challenges. Carlos faced difficulties not only at work, but also in his personal life as he adjusted to a structured routine and tried to rebuild his life. One of the main challenges Carlos faced was managing his finances. Previously, living on the streets, his needs were few and his income sporadic. Now, with a regular salary, he needed to learn how to plan and save for the future. Ricardo, noticing Carlos's need for financial guidance, suggested he participate in a financial education program offered by the company. This program included workshops on budgeting, saving, and long-term planning, designed to help employees better manage their personal finances. Carlos gratefully accepted the offer, recognizing the importance of acquiring these skills to achieve financial stability. The workshops were eye-opening for him. Carlos learned the importance of creating a budget, tracking expenses, and setting savings goals. He began saving a portion of his salary each month, with the goal of eventually renting his own apartment. This new financial management skill gave Carlos a sense of control over his life that he hadn't felt in years. In addition to finances, Carlos also faced emotional challenges. The transition from living on the streets to a more structured life was a significant adjustment. He had to deal with feelings of insecurity and anxiety, especially about his ability to keep the job and continue to grow in the company. Carlos feared that any mistake could set him back to square one. To help cope with these feelings, Ricardo suggested Carlos participate in emotional support sessions offered by the company, which covered topics such as self-esteem, resilience, and personal development. Carlos found these sessions extremely helpful. He began to develop a support network, both inside and outside the company, that helped him face daily challenges. During these sessions, Carlos also met other colleagues who were going through similar challenges, which made him feel less isolated. He realized he was not alone in his struggles and that it was possible to overcome difficulties with the right support. Another major challenge was reconnecting with his family. Carlos had lost contact with his relatives years ago when he began living on the streets. He felt ashamed and reluctant to seek help, fearing rejection or misunderstanding. However, with encouragement from Ricardo and his new colleagues, Carlos decided to try to reconnect with his sister, Maria. With Ricardo's help, he obtained her phone number and, with great nervousness, called her. Maria's response was surprising and emotional. She had been worried about Carlos for many years, not knowing where he was or if he was okay. She immediately invited him to meet, eager to see him again. Carlos accepted the invitation, and they met at a local cafe. The reunion was full of tears and hugs, and Carlos felt immense relief realizing that his sister was willing to support him and help him on his recovery journey. Maria offered Carlos a place to stay, but he explained that he was striving to become independent and was saving to rent his own place. She respected his decision but assured him he would always have a home with her if he needed it. Carlos was deeply touched by Maria's love and support, and the two began meeting regularly to talk and reconnect. As Carlos continued to work at Tech Hub Solutions, he began to stand out not only for his dedication and work ethic, but also for his positive attitude and willingness to help others. His colleagues began to seek him out for advice and support, seeing in Carlos a source of inspiration and an example of overcoming. Carlos, in turn, felt increasingly part of the company's community and began to develop a sense of belonging that he hadn't felt in a long time. By facing and overcoming these challenges, Carlos realized that he was growing and changing in ways he had never imagined possible. He was learning to manage his finances, take care of his mental health, and rebuild important relationships in his life. With the support of Ricardo, the company's team, and his sister, Carlos began to truly believe in his ability to create a better future for himself. At the end of the month, Carlos was called to Ricardo's office for a meeting. He entered, anxious but hopeful. Ricardo was sitting at the desk, smiling warmly. "Carlos, I'm impressed with the progress you've made since you started here," Ricardo said. "You've adapted quickly and become a valuable member of our team. I'm particularly impressed with your dedication to learning and growing, both personally and professionally." Carlos was touched by Ricardo's words and thanked him, feeling a wave of emotion. Ricardo then mentioned that, based on Carlos's performance and attitude, he wanted to offer him a more stable position with greater responsibilities in the company. The new position would come with a salary increase, which would help Carlos achieve his goal of renting his own apartment. Carlos accepted the offer with gratitude, feeling recognized and valued. He thanked Ricardo for believing in him and for giving him the opportunity to change his life. Ricardo, in turn, expressed his own gratitude for meeting Carlos, acknowledging that the experience had enriched him in unexpected ways as well. As Carlos left Ricardo's office, he felt more confident and hopeful than ever. He knew he still had many challenges ahead, but now he felt he had the tools and support needed to face them. Carlos was determined to continue growing and helping others along the way, sharing his story and offering support to those in need. That night, as Carlos lay down, he reflected on how much his life had changed in such a short time. He had gone from living on the streets to having a stable job, reconnecting with his family, and finding a new purpose in life. Carlos knew the road ahead would still be difficult, but he was ready to face the challenges and continue building a better future for himself. Over the following months, Carlos continued to grow both personally and professionally at TechHub Solutions. The company became an environment where he not only worked but also learned and continuously developed. He got involved in various company initiatives, including training and projects that helped him expand his skills and gain confidence in his abilities. Carlos now had a structured routine, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. He woke up early, had a simple breakfast at the shelter, and took public transportation to work. His dedication and punctuality did not go unnoticed by his colleagues and superiors, who began to see him as an example of resilience and dedication. Carlos felt a deep sense of accomplishment every day, knowing he was contributing to the company's success while also building a better future for himself. Ricardo continued to play a crucial role as Carlos's mentor and friend. They met regularly to discuss Carlos's progress, both in terms of work and personal development. Ricardo encouraged Carlos to continue participating in the development workshops offered by the company, which covered topics such as leadership, communication, and teamwork. These workshops not only helped Carlos acquire new skills, but also develop a clearer vision of his future goals. During one of these meetings, Ricardo asked Carlos about his long-term plans. He was interested in knowing how Carlos saw his future and if there was anything specific he wanted to achieve. Carlos, after reflecting, expressed his desire to continue growing in the company and eventually take on a leadership role. He also mentioned that he wanted to get more involved in projects that helped others in difficult situations, inspired by the help he received. Ricardo was impressed with Carlos's vision and offered support to help him achieve these goals. He suggested that Carlos join the company's emerging leadership program, which was designed to identify and develop future leaders. Carlos accepted the suggestion enthusiastically, seeing it as an opportunity to continue his growth trajectory and contribute even more significantly to the company. In addition to his professional development, Carlos also focused on improving his personal life. With the help of financial education workshops, he managed to save a significant amount of money. This savings allowed him to rent a small apartment, an important milestone in his journey to independence. The apartment was simple, but for Carlos, it represented a new beginning and proof of his ability to rebuild his life. On the day he moved into the new apartment, Ricardo and some co-workers offered to help. They brought some basic furniture and helped decorate the space. Carlos was deeply touched by the support and generosity of everyone. As he looked around the apartment, he felt a wave of emotion and gratitude. He knew he wouldn't have come this far without the help of Ricardo and the TechHub Solutions team. Carlos also maintained regular contact with his sister, Maria. They frequently met for dinner or just to chat, and their relationship flourished. Maria was incredibly proud of Carlos and the progress he had made. She encouraged him to continue pursuing his dreams and offered all the emotional support he needed. Carlos felt blessed to have his family back in his life, something he had feared he had lost forever. As Carlos adapted to his new life, he also began getting involved in volunteer activities. Inspired by the help he received, he wanted to give back and help others who were going through similar situations. Carlos began working with local organizations supporting the homeless and people in vulnerable situations, sharing his story and offering practical advice. He became an inspiring figure to many, an example that life can change with determination and support. Carlos also began participating in talks and events organized by TechHub Solutions, where he shared his life experience and talked about the importance of opportunities and support. He became a vocal advocate for creating more support programs for the homeless, emphasizing the need for a more compassionate and practical approach to helping these individuals reintegrate into society. Carlos's impact on the company community was remarkable. He inspired many colleagues to get involved in volunteer activities and support social causes. Carlos saw this as a way to continue the legacy of kindness and generosity he had received, creating a cycle of support and inspiration. He also realized that his role in the company had evolved. He was not just an employee, but a leader and mentor to others. Over time, Carlos was invited to join the company's Social Responsibility Committee, where he could help develop and implement social impact initiatives. He accepted the position enthusiastically, seeing it as an opportunity to contribute even more to the community and use his voice to promote positive change. Carlos began working on projects focusing on education and training for the homeless, aiming to create pathways for more people to have opportunities to rise again. Reflecting on his journey, Carlos felt deep gratitude and fulfillment. He had transformed his life in ways he never imagined possible. Through hard work, the support of friends and family, and his own determination, he had overcome enormous challenges and built a life he could be proud of. Carlos knew there was still much to do, both for himself and for others, but he was prepared to continue his mission of helping and inspiring. At the end of the month, Carlos was called to Ricardo's office for a meeting. He entered, anxious but hopeful. Ricardo was sitting at the desk, smiling warmly. "Carlos, I'm impressed with the progress you've made since you started here," Ricardo said. "You've adapted quickly and become a valuable member of our team. I'm particularly impressed with your dedication to learning and growing, both personally and professionally." Carlos was touched by Ricardo's words and thanked him, feeling a wave of emotion. Ricardo then mentioned that, based on Carlos's performance and attitude, he wanted to offer him a more stable position with greater responsibilities in the company. The new position would come with a salary increase, which would help Carlos achieve his goal of renting his own apartment. Carlos accepted the offer with gratitude, feeling recognized and valued. He thanked Ricardo for believing in him and for giving him the opportunity to change his life. Ricardo, in turn, expressed his own gratitude for meeting Carlos, acknowledging that the experience had enriched him in unexpected ways as well. As Carlos left Ricardo's office, he felt more confident and hopeful than ever. He knew he still had many challenges ahead, but now he felt he had the tools and support needed to face them. Carlos was determined to continue growing and helping others along the way, sharing his story and offering support to those in need. That night, as Carlos lay down, he reflected on how much his life had changed in such a short time. He had gone from living on the streets to having a stable job, reconnecting with his family, and finding a new purpose in life. Carlos knew the road ahead would still be difficult, but he was ready to face the challenges and continue building a better future for himself. As the months passed, Carlos continued to grow both personally and professionally at TechHub Solutions. The company became an environment where he not only worked but also learned and continuously developed. He got involved in various company initiatives, including training and projects that helped him expand his skills and gain confidence in his abilities. Carlos now had a structured routine, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. He woke up early, had a simple breakfast at the shelter, and took public transportation to work. His dedication and punctuality did not go unnoticed by his colleagues and superiors, who began to see him as an example of resilience and dedication. Carlos felt a deep sense of accomplishment every day, knowing he was contributing to the company's success while also building a better future for himself. Ricardo continued to play a crucial role as Carlos's mentor and friend. They met regularly to discuss Carlos's progress, both in terms of work and personal development. Ricardo encouraged Carlos to continue participating in the development workshops offered by the company, which covered topics such as leadership, communication, and teamwork. These workshops not only helped Carlos acquire new skills, but also develop a clearer vision of his future goals. During one of these meetings, Ricardo asked Carlos about his long-term plans. He was interested in knowing how Carlos saw his future and if there was anything specific he wanted to achieve. Carlos, after reflecting, expressed his desire to continue growing in the company and eventually take on a leadership role. He also mentioned that he wanted to get more involved in projects that helped others in difficult situations, inspired by the help he received. Ricardo was impressed with Carlos's vision and offered support to help him achieve these goals. He suggested that Carlos join the company's emerging leadership program, which was designed to identify and develop future leaders. Carlos accepted the suggestion enthusiastically, seeing it as an opportunity to continue his growth trajectory and contribute even more significantly to the company. In addition to his professional development, Carlos also focused on improving his personal life. With the help of financial education workshops, he managed to save a significant amount of money. This savings allowed him to rent a small apartment, an important milestone in his journey to independence. The apartment was simple, but for Carlos, it represented a new beginning and proof of his ability to rebuild his life. On the day he moved into the new apartment, Ricardo and some co-workers offered to help. They brought some basic furniture and helped decorate the space. Carlos was deeply touched by the support and generosity of everyone. As he looked around the apartment, he felt a wave of emotion and gratitude. He knew he wouldn't have come this far without the help of Ricardo and the TechHub Solutions team. Carlos also maintained regular contact with his sister, Maria. They frequently met for dinner or just to chat, and their relationship flourished. Maria was incredibly proud of Carlos and the progress he had made. She encouraged him to continue pursuing his dreams and offered all the emotional support he needed. Carlos felt blessed to have his family back in his life, something he had feared he had lost forever. As Carlos adapted to his new life, he also began getting involved in volunteer activities. Inspired by the help he received, he wanted to give back and help others who were going through similar situations. Carlos began working with local organizations supporting the homeless and people in vulnerable situations, sharing his story and offering practical advice. He became an inspiring figure to many, an example that life can change with determination and support. Carlos also began participating in talks and events organized by TechHub Solutions, where he shared his life experience and talked about the importance of opportunities and support. He became a vocal advocate for creating more support programs for the homeless, emphasizing the need for a more compassionate and practical approach to helping these individuals reintegrate into society. Carlos's impact on the company community was remarkable. He inspired many colleagues to get involved in volunteer activities and support social causes. Carlos saw this as a way to continue the legacy of kindness and generosity he had received, creating a cycle of support and inspiration. He also realized that his role in the company had evolved. He was not just an employee, but a leader and mentor to others. Over time, Carlos was invited to join the company's Social Responsibility Committee, where he could help develop and implement social impact initiatives. He accepted the position enthusiastically, seeing it as an opportunity to contribute even more to the community and use his voice to promote positive change. Carlos began working on projects focusing on education and training for the homeless, aiming to create pathways for more people to have opportunities to rise again. Reflecting on his journey, Carlos felt deep gratitude and fulfillment. He had transformed his life in ways he never imagined possible. Through hard work, the support of friends and family, and his own determination, he had overcome enormous challenges and built a life he could be proud of. Carlos knew there was still much to do, both for himself and for others, but he was prepared to continue his mission of helping and inspiring. With a heart full of hope and a promising future ahead, Carlos prepared to face the next challenges and opportunities. He knew that, regardless of what the future held, he had the strength and support necessary to continue growing and making a difference. And so, with newfound confidence and purpose, Carlos continued his journey, ready to embrace whatever came his way, knowing he was finally living the life he always dreamed of. As time passed, Carlos not only established himself in his new role at Tech Hub Solutions, but also became a respected and admired figure in the company and the local community. His commitment to work and dedication to social causes did not go unnoticed. The story of his transformation, from living on the streets to becoming a valuable team member, inspired many, both inside and outside the company. Tech Hub Solutions decided to host an event to celebrate the success and contributions of its employees, highlighting inspiring stories of growth and overcoming challenges. Carlos was chosen as one of the main honorees, a recognition not only of his work but also of his resilience and leadership. The anticipation for the event grew, and many were eager to hear Carlos share his story and vision. On the day of the event, the company's auditorium was packed. Employees, families, and members of the local community gathered to celebrate and acknowledge the achievements of the honorees. Ricardo, as the company's CEO, opened the event with an emotional speech. He spoke about the importance of creating an inclusive and supportive work environment where everyone had the opportunity to grow and thrive. When it was Carlos's turn to speak, he walked onto the stage with a modest smile. He looked out at the audience and saw many familiar faces: his coworkers, his sister Maria, and even some friends he had made in the volunteer organizations. Carlos felt a wave of gratitude and emotion, knowing how much this moment meant to him. Carlos began his speech by talking about his journey, from the challenges he faced living on the streets to the moment he found Ricardo's wallet. He explained how that simple act of honesty set off a chain of events that changed his life forever. Carlos spoke about the support he received from Ricardo and the Tech Hub Solutions team, emphasizing how crucial this support was to his recovery and growth. "I never imagined that returning a wallet could have such a big impact on my life," Carlos said, his voice filled with emotion. "But that act led me to meet incredible people who gave me the opportunity to start over. Ricardo, you and the entire Tech Hub Solutions team gave me not just a job, but also hope and purpose." Carlos also spoke about the importance of giving back and helping others. He shared his volunteer experiences and how he felt inspired to make a difference in the lives of others facing difficult situations. Carlos encouraged everyone to consider how they could contribute to their communities and support those going through challenging times. "We all have the power to make a difference," Carlos continued. "Sometimes, all someone needs is an opportunity, a helping hand. I'm here today because I had people who believed in me and supported me. I want to be that person for others. I want to help create a cycle of kindness and support." Carlos's speech was met with a standing ovation. Many in the audience were moved by his sincerity and humility. He had not only shared his story of overcoming adversity, but also inspired others to reflect on their actions and how they could make a difference. Ricardo, visibly touched, was the first to applaud, followed by everyone present. After the speech, Ricardo came up to the stage to present Carlos with a plaque recognizing his outstanding work and contributions to the company and the community. He praised Carlos for his courage and determination, highlighting how he had become an inspiration to everyone. "Carlos, you have shown us the true meaning of resilience and compassion," Ricardo said with a warm smile. "You are a living example that with determination and support, anyone can overcome challenges and achieve great things. We are proud to have you as part of our team and our family." Carlos, moved, thanked Ricardo and everyone present. He felt deeply honored by the recognition and grateful for all the opportunities he had received. For him, this moment was the culmination of much effort and a symbol of everything he had achieved. More than that, it was proof that his life was truly changing for the better. After the ceremony, Carlos was surrounded by coworkers and friends who wanted to congratulate him and express their admiration. Maria, his sister, was there, tears in her eyes, proud of her brother and everything he had achieved. She hugged Carlos and told him how happy she was to see him so fulfilled and happy. Carlos also received words of encouragement from members of the community and volunteer organizations he was involved with. Many expressed how his story had inspired them to get more involved and think about how they could help others. Carlos was touched to see the positive impact his journey was having on so many people. As the night came to an end, Carlos reflected on everything that had happened over the past months. He thought about how a simple act of honesty had set off a series of events that transformed his life in ways he never imagined. Carlos knew there were still challenges ahead, but he was confident and optimistic about the future. With the continued support of Ricardo, his family and friends, and his own determination, Carlos was ready to keep growing and making a difference. He knew that his journey was just beginning and that there was much more to learn and achieve. But he also knew that, no matter what the future held, he was ready to face any challenge with courage and gratitude. Carlos left the event with a heart full of hope and joy, grateful for all the blessings he had received. He knew that with the support of his community and his inner strength, he could achieve anything. And so, with a smile on his face and a renewed determination, Carlos continued his journey, ready to embrace whatever came his way, knowing he was finally living the life he always dreamed of. After the recognition event, Carlos's life continued to flourish in ways he had never imagined. He became a respected and admired figure at Tech Hub Solutions, not just for his work ethic, but also for his commitment to personal growth and community support. Carlos felt like he was living a new chapter in his life, one full of possibilities and opportunities to make a difference. With the continued support of Ricardo and his co-workers, Carlos became even more involved in social impact initiatives. He took on a leadership role in the company's Social Responsibility Committee, where he helped develop programs that benefited the local community. One of the most important projects Carlos led was a partnership with nonprofit organizations to provide training and job opportunities for homeless people. Carlos worked tirelessly to ensure the project's success. He used his own life experience as inspiration, deeply understanding the challenges and needs of those trying to start over. Carlos organized skills workshops, counseling sessions, and networking events, creating a supportive and encouraging environment for all participants. His passion and dedication were evident, and the project quickly gained recognition in the community. In addition to his work on the committee, Carlos also began giving talks at schools and community events, sharing his story of overcoming adversity and talking about the importance of empathy and solidarity. He used his voice to inspire others to never give up, regardless of their circumstances. Carlos also encouraged local businesses to get involved in social initiatives, showing how community support could be beneficial for everyone. In his personal life, Carlos continued to reconnect with his family and friends. He and his sister Maria now had a close and loving relationship. They often spent time together, either cooking meals at home or exploring the city. Maria continued to support Carlos in all his endeavors, proud of her brother and all he had accomplished. Carlos also made new friendships, both at work and in the community. He became an active member of support groups and volunteer networks, where he met people with similar interests and passions. These new connections enriched his life and helped him feel even more integrated into society. As Carlos reflected on his journey thus far, he realized how much he had changed and grown. From someone who had lost almost everything and lived on the streets, he had transformed into a respected community leader and an example of resilience and perseverance. He knew the journey hadn't been easy, but he was deeply grateful for all the opportunities and support he had received. Carlos also began to consider his future more broadly. He had dreams and ambitions to continue his education, perhaps attending college and earning a degree in social work or nonprofit management. He wanted to use his experience and knowledge to help even more people and make an even greater impact in the community. Ricardo, always an encouraging mentor, supported Carlos in his plans, offering advice and helping him explore educational options. Over time, Carlos saved enough money to rent a larger, more comfortable apartment. This new space was not just a material improvement, but also a symbol of his journey and success. Carlos decorated the apartment with simplicity and care, making it a welcoming home. He often hosted friends and family, sharing laughter and stories, celebrating life and achievements. One of the most exciting moments for Carlos was being invited to speak at a national conference on corporate social responsibility. There, he had the opportunity to share his story with an even larger audience and connect with leaders from various industries. The conference was a success, and Carlos received many compliments for his authenticity and passion. After the conference, Carlos was approached by several organizations interested in collaborating with him on social impact projects. He was excited about the new opportunities, seeing them as a chance to expand his work and reach even more people. Carlos knew that with these new connections and resources, he could continue to grow and make a significant difference. As Carlos looked to the future, he felt deep gratitude for everyone who had helped him on his journey. He knew he wouldn't have come this far without the support of Ricardo, his family, his friends, and the community. Carlos also recognized the importance of his own effort and determination, knowing that every step he took was crucial to his transformation. Carlos was now in a place where he could not only live comfortably, but also give back and help others find their own path to recovery and success. He felt fulfilled and happy, knowing his life had purpose and meaning. Carlos was determined to continue his mission of helping and inspiring others, using his story as a beacon of hope and resilience. As Carlos looked to the horizon, he knew his journey was far from over. He had many plans and dreams for the future, many of which involved continuing his social impact work and expanding his support initiatives. Carlos was ready to face new challenges and embrace new opportunities, knowing that with courage, gratitude, and community support, he could achieve anything. And so, with a heart full of hope and a clear vision for the future, Carlos continued his journey, ready to write the next chapters of his life. He knew that, regardless of what came next, he had the strength and resilience to face any challenge. Carlos was living the life he had always dreamed of, a life full of purpose, meaning, and, above all, love and gratitude.